Just got back from the theater. Well, not just. It's been a little bit, but today, just saw Terrifier 3, and for some context, I had seen All Hallows Eve. Whenever that came out, God, it feels like what 2018, 2019. And I was like, okay, it's just like an anthology thing that all revolves around this clown, Art the Clown. I don't know if it's considered canon as like prequel to Terrifier, but that is where Art the Clown came from. And then there was Terrifier 1, which I watched, and I was like, it seems kind of stupid. Low budget, really no story, just like very, very generic slasher. So I was like, eh. Now, Terrifier 2 comes out, and I go, I didn't really give a shit for the first one. It's just more dumb, whatever. And then I kept seeing, like, oh, it's getting great reviews. It's making a bunch of money. Everyone's going to go see it. And it's like a budget of, like, it was like a budget of, like, 2 million or like $200,000, something crazy. And it made like 15, $16 million, which is insane. And so I found it on a streaming app. Maybe it was Shudder. I was like, okay, we can finally watch it. It's hitting October of this year, so for our movie marathon, I was like, okay, let's check it out. And so in doing so, honestly, I was pretty blown away that Terrifier 2 was so enjoyable. Between basically practical effects, no CGI if at all, and an actual story and characters with emotional weight where you're like, oh, okay, I wasn't expecting this. And so in Terrifier 2, it's about a brother and sister. It's Sienna Shaw and her brother Jonathan Shaw. And, they're having to deal with Art the Clown, and like it starts building up a story where it's like the dad killed himself, but then there's like a weird thing where he had given her a sword that has magic powers, and he even drew a angel warrior who she then makes the armor of, and it gets very like fantasy like. And that was something I really wasn't expecting. It to me it felt very much like um Friday the 13th a lot, almost like Friday the 13th mixed with Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm sorry, yeah. It reminded me of Nightmare on Elm Street mixed with Friday the 13th. Very Dream Warriors esque, very classic person hunts a group of people. And by the end of Terrifier 2, it's like so on the like fantasy. It has like the 80s synth. I mean, everything is really, really well done. And of course, it alludes that he's not dead. And so this one starts. And again, the second one had really, really brutal kills. So, of course, I'm like, they're gonna, up it for this movie, I'm sure. And right from the get go, now that it's Christmas time, 5 years later, it starts with just like a very, very intense Christmas horror kill. Where the very first kill, it doesn't show it, is a little boy. Now it does show his cut up body, like, dismembered body later on, and you're like, whoa, this movie is not holding back. Again, I'm not gonna sit here and be, like, oh my god, ooh, the movie is so gory, like, oh my god, it's so ew, vile, nasty. Like, it's a gory movie. I was honestly shocked with how much they were doing, where I was like, holy god, they really changed what rated R is allowed to do, because we're seeing like full nudity, evisceration, dismemberment, like, wow. That's the funniest thing about, like with a lot of American movies, is like how ultra violent and a lot of things. Luckily, this movie doesn't really do, but as like horror movies where there's so much sexualization of people and characters. But this movie, there is a scene, like a sex scene, but it's pretty withheld, in my opinion. It's not like graphic like the Friday the 13th remake where you're like, oh. But yeah, it starts out with that kill, and again, I couldn't really see that, like, if at all, if there's any CGI in this movie. I was like, wow, I, I really appreciate the practical effects. They look disgusting. they looked so real at times, you know, like the bodies and the skin, where I was thinking, good lord, like, you know, there's something to be said about practical effects where, holy crap, I mean, it looked like a real dead body. So that was, you know, very, whew, because like my heart was pounding where I'm like, damn, this movie is stressing me out. And yeah, it's still basically Sienna is the main character again. She's been like in and out of a, you know, psych ward. She's now with her aunt and uncle, which I believe the aunt is the sister of her mom. Um, and it's her trying to cope with the fact that, like, trying to move on, but then she starts, you know, thinking she's imagining Art the Clown. And they do show an interesting thing in this movie, which is like, you know, really going more into the fact like he's a demon and there's multiple demons and good versus evil and angels versus hell. They really get into that, where I think the setup for the next movie might be like full on going to hell, or, you know, angels and demons and stuff. But I can really appreciate, so far from the last movie to this movie, the continuity. Like, they do a really good job with the continuity where nothing feels like it's been retconned or anything. And it's both generic slasher, but also fantastical, like, fantasy. I mean, that sounds stupid to say, but it's like horror, mystical fantasy, because it's angels and demons, but then it feels like magic powers and like the belief, like almost like It, where it's, you know, you believe that a monster can be killed by silver or whatever, and it happens, you know. And now in the established lore of these movies is a magic sword and angels and demons, and that, you know, there's conduits for demons and conduits for angels, and you're like, wow, okay, this is feeling like supernatural. But, you know, something that this movie, it's interesting how it flows, because it flowed just like the last movie, is that where the first one felt like it had no story and it was just gory kill scenes, the second movie and the third movie, it's basically horrific murder scene, story, horrific murder, even if it's not related to the story part. It just like, it's kind of like the Art the Clown story and the Sienna story, and they're all you know, kind of happening on their own places, doing their own thing, and then it leads up to the end, which is interesting. And the acting's good. The girl who plays Sienna, good job. I feel so bad for her character in the movie. At first, they just kept not mentioning the brother. I'm like, did he die between movies? But he is in the movie. And they introduced to her cousin, I believe, Gabby. And, you know, kind of like how, you know, her aunt and uncle are trying to deal with her, thinking that she's, you know, crazy. And that, you know, the brother is now in college and his roommate's girlfriend is one of those annoying ass true crime podcasters that is trying to like get an interview with him and the sister. And it was so believable that she is just this inconsiderate, dumb asshole, because, you know, they're on a podcast and talking about, you know, murder and crimes, because on a little tangent, you know, it's annoying when people do true crime and want to talk about really, really sensitive, intense subjects, and then they'll say shit like unalive or whatever, because they're like, oh, you know, the YouTube algorithm, money. And it's like, oh, okay, so you're proving to me that you care more about getting on the trend like charts and getting your ad revenue more than like telling us the story of like this horrific thing that happened. You're just doing it for money. So that was an interesting aspect. And of course, you know, the podcast girl's like, I want to know what it feels like to have survived Art the Clown. I'm like, oh, she's dead. And so yeah, there's just enough characters introduced, but there's a lot of also random characters that get killed off, and they again do not hold back. It is really, really intense. Honestly, the first movie in a while where I wouldn't say I was scared, but I was just like, I was like, wow, that is intense to see. And of course, my wife was like, whoa, oh my god, whoa, hey, you know, woo. But yeah, I wouldn't say I was scared by the movie. I was just felt stressed. Where it's like, holy crap. Because the second movie and this movie, weirdly, they feel like very long movies. Like in my opinion, they both feel like 3-hour movies. I'm not saying that's bad. It's just it's a cohesive narrative, but holy crap, there's so much murder. Um, and it makes me understand why people have now kind of cult classified Art the Clown as, now, just like with Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, 30, 40 years from now, people are going to still probably be like, oh shit, Terrifier, Art the Clown, it's an icon of horror. I definitely see it. My only concern with that is I hope they don't go with how every other damn thing has been. Friday the 13th, where it should have ended at part 4. Nope, he's a zombie now. Nightmare on Elm Street. Oh, he's back again. Whatever. Remake, remake, remake. Oh, he's back. Oh, we can't let it die. It's like, oh my god. I don't want it to be where it's like Terrifier 9 and it's just kind of the same shit. I'm hoping they have an end goal in mind, and with how this one appears to be going, I can see it probably ending in the next movie or a 5th one. But it's like, just, it's doing so good. Please, like, let it end on a good note and not sour it by making 14 of these and then remaking it, in 20 years. But I think so. You want to watch like a horror movie on October, I would say go watch it, but just, be aware that it's extremely violent and extremely gory. I think some people don't understand when they're like, yeah, whatever. It's like, no, it's extremely violent and gory. And we're talking dead kids extreme. And so just be aware of that. I think it's fair warning. Yeah, I guess that's really all there is for me to say. Fantastic effects, great acting, except for the podcast girl. It's both like believable that she's doing that, but her acting is kind of cringe. But I am excited for the franchise. I am a fan now. I'm not a fan enough, obviously, to buy like merch or anything, but probably would buy it on Blu-ray. It's an interesting series, so check it out if that sounds good to you. But until next time, that is it. I'm out.